Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. In the deepest vaults beneath the Emperor's palace, a throne sits that was never meant to last. Gold and wreathed in 1,000 reliquaries, it crackles with power not its own. It is silent, always silent, save for the screaming. Not the kind that comes from lungs, but the kind that seeps into stone. Psychic, endless, and unseen. This is the Golden Throne, and it is not a seat of power, but of burden, of consumption, and of death. Every day, thousands of souls are fed to it. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Literally, their minds are unraveled, their spirits torn to keep one half-dead god barely breathing. They are called sacrifices. But they were people, psychers, mutants of the soul, cursed and blessed in equal measure by the warp. Some were healers, some were mad. Some didn't even know they had power until it was too late. All of them now share the same fate, to burn endlessly, in the service of a man who once walked among stars. There is no honor in it, no reward, only the quiet, impersonal death of being ground into psychic fuel. And yet, without their agony, the Imperium dies. You never volunteer, no one asks. The black ships do not arrive with ceremony, they do not come with honor guards or pomp. They drift through the void like funeral barges, blacker than the void itself, their hulls etched with wards and runes that make the warp shiver. When they appear in orbit, the population knows. The astropaths and officials of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica disembark in silence, their minds shielded, their eyes blank with sanctioned purpose. And then the gathering begins. They take the psychers first, those who have been reported by governors or planetary officials, those who slipped once and revealed too much. But it doesn't stop there. The black ships have their own means of detection. Cities are scanned. Populations are sampled. Children, the elderly, soldiers, priests, anyone might be chosen. Entire families vanish in a single night if the signs are right. It is not random, but it feels that way. And when you are taken, there is no explanation, no trial, no parting words. You simply disappear. Those who survive the initial culling find themselves inside the hold of the black ship, among thousands. The air is cold and tastes of metal and old fear. The lights are dim. The silence is oppressive, but it is not peace. It is the weight of too many minds, too many terrified thoughts pressing against the inside of your skull. You learn very quickly not to speak, not to think too loudly, not to cry out. Because somewhere on that ship, there are psychers so far gone they do not know they're alive anymore. And sometimes they scream. Not with voices, their screams ripple through the air like broken glass, shattering minds that stray too close. Time loses meaning on the black ships. There are no clocks, no windows, no sense of movement. You are not allowed to know where you are or how long you've been aboard. Meals come at irregular intervals, delivered without words. The guards do not speak. The only sounds are the shuffle of boots, the occasional sobbing of someone who still remembers how to cry, and the nightmares that leak into waking thoughts. Sleep offers no refuge. Many begin to hallucinate. Some go catatonic. A few explode, not physically but psychically, their minds imploding under the pressure, taking others with them. The bodies are dragged away without ceremony. And yet, through all this, there is a strange and bitter hierarchy that begins to form. The strongest minds, the ones who resist madness, begin to sense each other. They speak without speaking, forming wordless alliances or rivalries. Some try to dominate others, drawing power from fear. Others offer a kind of shelter, a psychic calm that keeps those near them from falling apart. The black ships watch it all. They do not interfere. Sometimes, the guards come and remove one of these emergent leaders, and no one ever sees them again. No one asks questions. You begin to understand slowly that this is a test, not of power, but of endurance, of stability. The Imperium doesn't need psychers who burn out. It needs those who can endure the nightmare, those who can carry their curse without falling into it. The ship itself becomes a crucible, and you are being refined or destroyed. Then the voices start, not human voices. Not anything from this reality. You begin to feel presences scratching at the walls of your mind. The warp, always close to psychers, is now hungry. The black ships protect, but imperfectly. You feel things watching you from the corners of your thoughts. They whisper promises. They offer escape. Some answer. Those who do are consumed. Sometimes they die screaming. Sometimes they simply disappear, body and soul. And sometimes they change. Twisting slowly into something less than human, until the guards come with flame and blade. You survive. Somehow. Perhaps you hide your power well, perhaps you are strong enough to remain invisible, or perhaps the Emperor wills it. Either way, you remain when others do not. You learn to make your thoughts small, your fears even smaller. You forget your name, your past, your home. You become nothing more than another face among thousands, until the day the doors open. Terra. You see it only for a moment, through a narrow view slit in the landing bay, but it burns into your mind. The sky is black. The cities rise like mountains. The air tastes of incense and industry. You are home, someone whispers, though it was never your home. You are brought into a line, one among many. Your number is called, and you march. You do not know where you are going, only that this is the end. No one escapes the black ships, but some survive the voyage. You are one of them. They strip you of everything. Not just clothing, not just identity. They strip you of self. When you disembark on Terra, there are no banners, no heralds, no hymns. The air is dry, heavy with soot and incense, and your first breath on the throne world feels like inhaling centuries of sorrow. The halls are impossibly vast. You walk among tens of thousands, each reduced to silence. There is no speaking, not from the guards, not from the prisoners, not even from the wind. It is the silence of judgment, and it presses down harder than any chains. You are herded like cattle through chambers of gleaming adamantium and stone carved by hands long dead. Icons of the Emperor stare down at you from 1,000 stained glass murals, and for a moment you feel the weight of your life balanced on the edge of a knife. Every step echoes. Every glance from the silent adepts chills the marrow. The air hums with psychic static, and somewhere deep in your mind, you feel your thoughts unraveling. This is the Scholastia Psychana's sorting ground, the crucible of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Here, a decision is made, not by you, not for you, but about you. Your presence is weighed against the needs of the Imperium. Some are found to have potential. They are sent to training halls deep within the fortress where they may yet serve as sanctioned psychers, astropaths, or tools of war. A rare few rise. But most do not. Most are deemed unstable, dangerous, or simply unnecessary. You know your fate long before they tell you. You see it in the eyes of the adepts who study you. You see it in the way the guards grip their weapons when you pass. You feel it in the emptiness of the corridors you are funneled through. There are no more hymns, no more murals, only walls, gray, plain, cold. You are marked, not with ink, not with a brand, but marked by fate, by a machine of bureaucracy so vast and ancient that it no longer sees you as human. You pass through the psychic null chambers, and for a moment, the warp recedes. It is like being suffocated in reverse, a void pressing into your soul where once there was fire. Some collapse here, others scream. The nulls strip away the last defenses of the mind, preparing you for the final ritual. Those who resist are dealt with swiftly. There is no room for defiance. You are not important enough to disobey. Before the end, there is cleansing, not of body. That no longer matters, but of soul. You are brought into a chamber carved from pale stone, its walls etched with litanies of the Emperor. Runes flicker in faint gold light. Priests enter, they chant. You kneel, you do not believe. It does not matter. Belief is no longer a currency you can spend. They anoint your brow with sacred oils and speak words in a tongue you do not understand. The rite is not for you. It is for the system, the tradition. You are part of a machine now, a cog ground to dust the moment it engages. And then, they begin to separate you from yourself. There are no blades, no visible tools. The adepts touch your temples, and you feel your memories flicker. Not vanish, not yet, but begin to unravel. Your name frays at the edges, the faces of your parents blur. The smell of your homeworld is swallowed by the scent of incense and death. It is not pain, exactly. It is worse. It is the sense that you are being hollowed out to make room for something else, something vast, ancient, and endlessly hungry. At this point, you may begin to scream. Not everyone does. Some accept it, some go silent, dead inside long before the soul itself begins to fade. But you perhaps hold on to something, a thread of who you were, a single image, a word, a memory. You repeat it in your mind desperately, even as the adepts strip your soul bare. There is one final hallway. It stretches longer than any mortal structure should. On each side, statues, saints, martyrs, warriors, and emperors of ancient history stare down with hollow eyes. and at the far end, a door of gold. Not metal, not decoration, pure psychic gold, singing softly with the echoes of 10,000 dead minds. You are the next to walk through. There is no turning back, no delay. The guards do not speak, they simply gesture, and you walk. Because what else can you do? There is no light behind the golden door, not at first. Only the stifling press of heat, of presence, of expectation. The chamber is massive, impossibly so. A void cloaked in shadow, wreathed in incense so thick it clings to your lungs like ash. You step forward, barefoot, onto metal grates that hum beneath your feet. Each footfall feels sacrilegious, intrusive, like an insect crawling hard of a god's tomb. The first thing you feel is the pressure. Not physical. Not like gravity or air, but psychic. A weight upon your thoughts. An eye turned inward. It is as if the universe itself has noticed you, and it does not care what it sees. You are nothing here. A flicker. A momentary breath in the eternity of pain that fuels this place. You are not alone. You see them in the dimness, the other sacrifices. They stand in a line that stretches out into the darkness, draped in rags or nothing at all, eyes vacant, minds frayed. Some murmur to themselves. Others have long since ceased to react to anything around them. All are waiting. You take your place among them. There is no instruction, but you understand. Everyone does. It is the last instinct left to you. Obey. The line moves slowly. Each minute, one figure is led away. There is no struggle, no words. Only a momentary twitch in the air, like a ripple through still water, and then silence returns. You try not to look at the door they disappear behind, the final threshold. But your eyes drift there anyway. It is not large, not grand. It is simple, unadorned, glowing faintly with a dull red light that pulses like a heartbeat. That door leads to the core, the very foot of the golden throne, the moment of sacrifice. When it is your turn, something in you cracks. Not from fear. You have lived with fear for too long. Not from defiance. That is long gone. It is something else. A kind of bone-deep weariness, a sorrow so complete it erases even the desire to survive. And yet you walk. Your feet carry you forward, through the final door, into the machine. The chamber is blinding, not from light but from force, psychic force. The golden throne looms above you, a vast construct of metal, flesh, and divine machinery, stretching into the vaults above like a cathedral fused with a corpse. You cannot see the Emperor directly. No one ever does. He is hidden behind shields, behind fields of psychic containment, behind layers of ancient technology that should not function. But you feel him. Every cell in your body feels him. It is not warmth, it is not majesty, it is annihilation. The adepts are waiting, clad in robes of shimmering red and gold, their faces hidden behind masks of polished bone. They do not speak, they do not touch you. They simply gesture toward the platform, a disc of black stone carved with sigils older than the Imperium. You step onto it. You do not remember doing so. Your legs move of their own accord, and then it begins. There is no warning, no rite, no prayer. One moment you are standing, and the next your mind is on fire. The pain is indescribable. It is not physical, though your body convulses. It is not just mental, though your thoughts shatter like glass. It is spiritual. A soul-deep scream that does not escape your lips because your mouth no longer knows how to shape sound. You are being unraveled. Every memory, every feeling, every whisper of identity is peeled away, layer by layer. You feel the presence of the Emperor, not as a being, but as a gravitational force, a black hole of psychic hunger that pulls your essence into itself. You see things. Images not your own. Worlds burning, demons howling, armies marching in endless war. A child on a throne of fire, a galaxy bleeding beneath a golden sun. You understand nothing. It is not meant to be understood. These are the Emperor's thoughts, fragments of a mind so vast it breaks all who touch it. And then you feel yourself begin to dissolve. It is not death. Death would be a mercy. This is consumption. You are being drawn into a fire that has no warmth, only need. Your consciousness stretches thin, pulled into the throne's mechanism, where it will be used momentarily to feed the Astronomicon. You are light, you are power, you are agony. Your scream joins the chorus of a million others, a psychic wail that echoes in eternity. And then, you are gone. No trace, no remains, no grave, only the faintest ripple in the endless sea of sacrifice that keeps the Emperor alive. And the line moves forward. They tell stories of what happens afterward, though no one truly knows. There are theories, fragments of visions whispered by sanctioned psychers, or recorded in the heretical journals of those who came too close to the throne's truth. What becomes of the soul when it is devoured? Is it utterly annihilated, ceasing to exist in every sense, thought, echo, essence? Or does something remain, bound within the machinery, trapped in a state of eternal half-life? Some claim that the souls of the sacrificed are not destroyed but absorbed, layered upon each other in a vast psychic tapestry woven into the golden throne itself. A cumulative presence, each thread screaming forever yet unable to escape. It is not conscious in the way we understand, but it is aware. Not as an individual, but as a mass, a hive scream of endless torment compressed into silence. Each new sacrifice adds to it, and each day the throne pulses with their agony. Others believe that fragments of the sacrificed live on in the emperor's mind. That as their psyches are broken down and consumed, pieces of memory or identity are imprinted upon his essence. Not enough to influence him, of course. His will is iron, unyielding, forged in millennia of war and sacrifice. But perhaps, deep within the infinite halls of his fractured consciousness, there are echoes. A mother's lullaby, a soldier's last prayer, a child's name spoken one final time, ghosts in a god's mind. And there are darker theories still. Whispers that the throne has become something more than machine, that it is alive, in a way. Not sentient but animate, not willful but responsive. That the accumulation of so many minds, so much agony, has shaped the throne into a psychic entity unto itself. An extension of the emperor, but also distinct from him. A presence formed from sacrifice, grown bloated and ravenous, demanding more and more each day. Some heretics believe the throne is now a god in its own right, not the emperor, but a parasite fed by his worship. That the souls of the sacrifice do not empower him directly, but feed this entity instead, which then sustains him. A horrifying inversion of the imperial creed, where martyrdom fuels not salvation, but a prison of unending torment. The ecclesiarchy silences such voices with flame and blade, but the theory persists, and then there are the visions. The sanctioned psychers who have stood near the throne, not within the chamber of sacrifice, but close enough to feel the psychic shockwaves, sometimes come back broken. They speak in riddles, they draw spirals in the air. Some paint visions of an ocean of screaming faces, each one dissolving into the next. Others claim they heard a voice, not the emperor's, but a choir of 1,000,000 souls pleading for release. None of these psychers survive long. They are quietly disposed of, but their testimonies are preserved, hidden deep within the sealed vaults of the Ordo Hereticus. What does it mean to be unmade, to be burned so completely that even your death is not your own, that your last moment is not a release, but an offering? In the Imperium, death is cheap, but this is not death. This is repurposing. You are taken apart like a machine, every usable piece extracted, every useless part discarded. You are not remembered, you are not named, you are fuel. You are power. You are the means to an end, and yet, even in this annihilation, there is a kind of twisted immortality. Your essence, however fragmented, becomes part of the vast mechanism that keeps the Imperium alive. Every ship that traverses the warp, every beacon of the Astronomicon that guides a lost fleet, every astropath who reaches across the stars, all of it rides on the tide of sacrificed souls. You are not nothing. You are the whisper behind the warp light, the tremor in the Emperor's breath, the echo in the Astronomicon, but you are no longer you. It is not just pain that echoes in the depths of the throne chamber. It is not just death, or loss, or even the weight of sacrifice. It is the accumulation of voices, countless, overlapping, twisted, and shredded into one another. They do not form words. They are not coherent, but they are present. A low-frequency wail, a hum beneath the surface of Terra's core, inaudible to mortal ears, yet ever-present in the psychic spectrum. The echoes of 1,000,000 screams. Each day thousands die to feed the throne. Each day thousands more arrive on the black ships. It is a cycle as constant as the rising sun, as indifferent as the void. No one mourns the dead. No one remembers their names. They are categorized, processed, assigned, and destroyed. The system is perfect in its cruelty. Nothing is wasted, not even the screams. There are those among the Adeptus Custodes, the silent watchers who never sleep, who speak of a pressure behind their eyes, a constant tension, like a sound they cannot hear but feel in the bones. They never discuss it aloud, But they know. They feel the pain pressed into the very walls of the throne room, soaked into the floors by millennia of sacrifice. They walk among the echoes, silent guardians of a god who feeds on agony. Even the Sisters of Silence, immune to the warp's corruption and blessed with the null trait, sense it. They do not speak. They cannot. But their faces change after too many years of service near the throne. They become hollow, not out of sorrow, but out of exposure. As if even in their blankness, they cannot shield themselves entirely from the depthless pain resonating in the stone. Some among the Adeptus Mechanicus argue that these echoes are data, psychic residue that can be mapped, measured, perhaps even deciphered. In the hidden catacombs beneath Mars, heretic priests have tried to record the frequencies emitted from the Golden Throne. They believe the patterns in the suffering form a kind of language, a divine waveform, the Emperor's subconscious speaking through the wails of the consumed. They seek communion not with the Emperor himself, but with this chorus of agony, convinced it holds some cosmic truth. Most are silenced before their theories can reach beyond their secret circles. But there are rumors, whispers among navigators and astropaths, of dreams shared across the void, visions of a screaming sea, of faces pressed against the veil of the immaterium, wailing not in torment but in warning, that the Emperor is not the only one sustained by the sacrifices, that something else listens, something ancient, something in the warp that feeds on the echoes. The ecclesiarchy denies all of it. To them, the screams are proof of devotion, proof that each soul given to the throne joins the Emperor in eternity. Martyrs by necessity, saints in sacrifice, sermons are preached extolling the honor of such a death. Children are taught that to die for the Emperor is to live forever in his light. They are not told about the screaming. They are not told about the echoes. They are told it is holy music. But the echoes persist. And for those who live and work within the walls of the imperial palace, who serve within the sanctum of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, or who draw close to the Golden Throne, the echoes become a constant companion, a pressure behind the eyes, a whisper at the edge of thought, a presence felt only in stillness when all else is quiet. It waits there, behind perception, a reminder that the Imperium's survival is built on suffering. You cannot hear the echoes from orbit. You cannot hear them through the banners, the parades, or the triumphant speeches. But if you descend far enough into the catacombs, if you stand close to the sanctified metal of the throne's base, if you close your eyes and open your mind, you will feel them. A tide of pain, undying, unresolved. Not ghosts, not memories, just sound, just pressure, just a million souls screaming into eternity. And there is no silence, not ever again. The Astronomicon is a paradox, a beacon of hope built on unrelenting horror. It shines across the warp like a blazing star, the single most powerful psychic signal humanity has ever created. Without it, interstellar travel would be a blind plunge into madness. With it, the Imperium persists, fleets navigate, armies move, worlds stay connected, and every moment it burns, it consumes thousands of souls. They do not die for nothing. That is the lie told most often, and like many lies in the Imperium, it is not entirely false. The sacrifice fuels something real, the Emperor's psychic presence amplified 1,000-fold. The Astronomicon is not just power, it is vision, direction, control. It stretches across millions of light years, a thin, flickering thread of order in a sea of chaos. Without it, humanity would fracture, splinter into isolated pockets, and be devoured. But this flame does not burn clean. It is not simple energy. It is fed by lives, and lives are messy, complex, unwilling. Each soul burned to sustain the Astronomicon is not merely a unit of power, it is a person with dreams, regrets, fears. And those are part of the fuel. The Astronomicon does not run on faith alone. It runs on agony, on the shredding of thought and identity. It is a lighthouse built from bones. The sheer scale is staggering. Every day, over 1,000 psychers are sacrificed, not to kill them, but to unmake them, their psychic energy funneled into the throne. This is not a one-time ritual. It is constant, continuous. A furnace that cannot be allowed to go cold, not even for a moment. The Emperor's body is dead, but his mind, or what remains of it, is sustained through this river of suffering. And the truth is, it barely works. The Astronomicon flickers, it wanes. In the furthest corners of the galaxy, its light dims, sometimes vanishes altogether. Warp storms rise, routes collapse, Even the navigators, those genetically engineered to sense and interpret the beacon, speak in hushed tones of how unstable it has become. The Imperium's greatest light is faltering, and there is no solution. Only more sacrifice. No one questions the need. Questioning is heresy. But among the highest ranks of the Eptis Astra Telepathica, among the most senior navigators and Terran-born Imperial admirals, there is a shared understanding, unspoken, but real. The cost is unsustainable. There are only so many psychers, so many bodies, so many minds that can be fed into the throne before the pool runs dry. And still, the machine demands. The Astronomican's reach is vast but uneven. It shines brightest near Terra and fades the farther you go. In the eastern fringe, its glow is a faint ember. In the darkness of the Great Rift, it is often absent altogether. Whole sectors vanish into warp storms, unable to call for aid, unable to be found. Billions die in silence because the beacon cannot reach them, and the psychers keep dying. Some believe the Emperor himself chooses the worthy, that his will guides which souls burn and which are spared. But the truth is far colder. It is logistics, it is quotas, it is numbers on a ledger, calculated to maintain balance without emotion. The Emperor does not speak, he does not bless, he simply consumes, because he must. There are factions within the Imperium, radical inquisitors, breakaway mechanicus sects, who seek alternatives. Machines to replicate the beacon, artificial psychers, forbidden Xenos technologies, all have failed. Some have unleashed horrors, others simply disappear. The Astronomican remains unique, irreplaceable, indivisible, and cruel. And still, the Imperium calls it sacred. Pilgrims journey to Terra, unaware of what lies beneath the marble floors and golden statues. They pray to the light that guides them, never knowing that the cost of their journey was paid in screams. That the beacon that led them home was fed by the agony of the innocent. There is no glory in the Astronomican. Only necessity, only sacrifice. And yet, it is beautiful. When described by those who can see it, truly see it, the Astronomican is a thing of wonder. A star of psychic gold burning through the warp, a constant in a shifting sea. It is the Emperor's last breath made light, his will made fire. And though it is terrible, it is also the reason humanity has not yet fallen. But the light dims, and the cost grows. There comes a point where pragmatism collides with morality, and the result is silence. That silence surrounds the Golden Throne like a second shell, a refusal to speak of what is truly happening, a willful blindness passed from lord to servant, priest to acolyte. But the truth remains. The sacrifice of psychers to the Emperor is not an act of honor. It is a calculated horror. A systemic, institutionalized atrocity that no longer even requires hatred or malice to function. It is simply the way things are. In the earliest days, perhaps there was grief. Perhaps the High Lords whispered in fear about what the Golden Throne required. But that time is long past. Now, it is process. The psychers are gathered, sorted, cleansed, fed into the machine. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica maintains its quotas. The Ecclesiarchy spins its narratives. The Adeptus Administratum ensures that each world offers its share. And the Imperium continues, trudging forward over a road paved in souls. But the ethical abyss remains. We rarely ask if it is right. In the Imperium, the idea of rightness has decayed into survival. There is only necessary and unnecessary. And this, the harvesting of psychers, the ritual unmaking of minds to keep a corpse alive, is necessary. Therefore, it is unquestioned. And any who dare to speak against it are labeled traitor, heretic, or worse. Yet how do we measure worth in this system? A psycher born on a backwater world, dragged screaming from their home, chained aboard a black ship, stripped of self and sacrificed. What did they do to deserve such an end? Nothing. They simply were. Born with a gift they did not ask for, into a regime that sees them as fuel. And what of those who wield power? The Inquisitors, the Navigators, the Space Marine Librarians? They are psychers too. But their usefulness, their training, their control grants them exemption. They are assets, not threats. They are refined tools. The sacrificed are not dangerous, they are disposable. That distinction is not moral, it is practical. And it damns the entire process. There is no consent, there is no appeal. A psycher's fate is decided by an ancient machine of fear and necessity. Some may claim that to die for the Emperor is the greatest honor, but that lie becomes harder to sustain when you hear the screaming. And yes, there is screaming. You don't hear it on the streets of Terra, or in the grand halls of the ecclesiarchy. You don't hear it in the propaganda reels or the victory parades, but it is there, pulsing beneath the surface of the Imperium like a festering wound. Those who serve near the throne, who walk the halls of the Astra Telepathica, hear it, even if they never admit it. The worst part? The system is efficient. It works. The sacrifices do preserve the Astronomicon. They do empower the Emperor. Without them, the Imperium would fall. Billions more would die. Worlds would burn. So who dares to stop it? Who dares to raise the moral question when the cost of mercy is extinction? Some have tried. There are recorded cases of rogue psychers who escape the black ships, who try to live free. They are hunted, always, without exception. Not just because they are dangerous, but because they represent the unbearable idea that the system might be wrong. That not every psyker is a ticking bomb. That some might live, might contribute, without dying. But that cannot be allowed. To question the sacrifice is to question the Emperor's plan. And in the Imperium, nothing is more heretical. So the sacrifice continues. But in quiet corners, among the lowest ranks of the Astra Telepathica, among the psychers too weak to be useful but too stable to be discarded, the ethical questions still bubble. They speak in whispers, share dreams, half-formed thoughts. What if there was another way? What if humanity could grow beyond this horror, not just survive it? But dreams are fragile things, and in the Imperium, they die quickly. Just like psychers. They had names once. Some still remember them, though the names slip like water through fingers. On the black ships, identity becomes a liability. On Terra, it becomes a target. But before the shackles, before the anointing oils and the psychic unraveling, they were people. And even now, even as echoes, their stories matter, if only to remind us that the sacrifices were not symbols. They were human. One was called Celine, a healer on a fringe world racked by plague. Her touch calmed the fever. Her presence brought peace. She never knew she was a psyker. The villagers thought she was blessed, until the administratum census arrived and the truth bled out through paperwork and whispers. She was taken without resistance. She believed she was being chosen, elevated to serve the Emperor. It wasn't until the third week on the black ship, huddled among the broken and the mad, that she realized the truth. She did not cry, but she stopped speaking. Her last thought, before the platform consumed her, was of the child she had once saved with a single whispered prayer. Another was Divas, a criminal, born in the underhive of a hive world so vast it spanned continents. He survived by wit and spite, using his flickering psychic gift to cheat death and kill rivals. He was no innocent, no saint, but he wasn't ready to die. When the black ships came, he fought, killed 3 Arbites, ran for days. But the Telepathica always finds its own. He screamed when they took him, screamed for weeks aboard the ship. By the time they reached Terra, he was silent, not out of acceptance, but because there was no voice left. On the platform, he tried to bite the adept's face. The guards broke his limbs before offering him to the throne. Some say his soul resisted longer than most, that it howled on the way down. Then there was Lyra, a child, no more than 8 years old. Her gift was empathy, so strong that she felt others' pain as if it were her own. When her mother cried, she bled. When her father died in a mining accident, her heart stopped for a minute. The Telepathica did not wait for puberty. She was taken early, without warning. On the black ship, she clung to a piece of cloth, a scarf from home. The guards didn't take it. Maybe they pitied her. Maybe they forgot. She held it until her final moment, eyes wide, lips moving in silent prayer. She didn't understand what was happening. She thought she was being taken to meet the Emperor. In a way, she was. These are just 3 among millions. There are as many stories as there are souls consumed. Most are never told. Some don't even begin. Psychers who die in containment, who explode into warp fire, who are torn apart by their own minds before ever reaching Terra. But even the briefest life leaves a mark. And those marks gather, layer by layer, into a quiet memorial no one is allowed to speak of. Not all the sacrificed were unwilling. Some believed, genuinely, fully. They saw the Emperor as a savior, and to die for him was the highest honor. They walked the final corridor with heads held high. Some even smiled. Whether out of faith or madness, no one can say. Their deaths were no less horrific, but perhaps their souls screamed softer. In hidden places, there are those who try to remember. Unsanctioned shrines, forbidden journals, Scribes who etch names into cracked stone, knowing full well that doing so is punishable by death. Not all are heretics. Some are devout. But they believe, quietly, dangerously, that martyrdom without memory is not sacrifice, but slaughter. These are the voices of the lost, not loud, not proud, but real. In the dead of night, when the warped winds howl and the Astronomicon pulses like a wounded star, you might feel them. Not as ghosts, not as vengeance, but as stories unfinished, as thoughts cut short, as memories trying to survive. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all. The psychers who burn in the Golden Throne don't just die, they vanish. But for a moment, a brief, flickering moment, they existed. And in that moment, they were more than fuel. They were people, and they mattered. The Imperium is a machine that feeds on faith and fire. It needs saints, it needs martyrs, it needs death that means something, or appears to. The truth is ugly, but the narrative, the myth, is beautiful. That is the ecclesiarchy's purpose, to take horror and wrap it in robes of gold, to take sacrifice and turn it into sanctity. The psychers who die for the Emperor are not just fuel. They are holy, or so the Imperium demands they be seen. The cult of martyrdom has no central cathedral, no specific dogma. It seeps into every sermon, every hymn, every stained glass window depicting the Emperor's radiance. It teaches that to be chosen is an honor, that to die for the throne is a reward. Psychers are no longer mutants to be feared. They are vessels, ordained by fate to offer their souls to him on earth. In truth, the ecclesiarchy once feared them, hunted them, burned them as witches. But that was then. Now, the narrative has changed. It had to. You see it in the statues, impossibly tall effigies of hooded figures holding aloft flames, their faces serene, their eyes uplifted in acceptance. You hear it in the chants that echo through the hallowed halls of Terran temples. Through fire, we find purity. Through sacrifice, we find the throne. There are songs written in High Gothic that tell of psychers smiling as they dissolve into light. They are lies. But they are necessary lies. Ceremonies are held for the departed, not for the psychers themselves, but for the citizens, to reassure, to inspire. These public spectacles never show the black ships. They never show the sorting. Instead, they display golden banners, immaculate acolytes, and the soft flicker of symbolic flames. Young Scala children reenact the walk to the throne with mock solemnity. The crowd weeps and then forgets. On some worlds, psycher children are paraded through the streets before being taken. People throw flowers, priests give them blessings, families watch with a mixture of fear and pride. But the child is already marked, already condemned. The ritual means nothing to the machine, but it means everything to those watching. It turns terror into tradition, and those left behind cling to that illusion. Parents whisper to themselves that their child serves the Emperor, that their death had purpose, that they shine now, part of the Astronomicon. The cult gives them comfort. It must, because without it, the scale of loss becomes unbearable. Without it, the Imperium looks in the mirror and sees a cannibal god feasting on its own children. Some psychers come to believe the myth themselves, especially the youngest, especially those raised in the Schola Progenium, indoctrinated from infancy. They recite prayers of burning, practice sacrificial rites, and study the names of psychers elevated to sainthood. These are rare, symbolic. Names like Saint Fratha the Silent, who walked to the throne without a single word and offered her mind like a blade. No one knows if she existed. But the story lives. For the ecclesiarchy, this is perfect. The cult of martyrdom is a tool of control. It takes the unbearable and makes it holy. It sanctifies slaughter, and it spreads, as all cults do. In the void-faring fleets of the Navis Imperialis, crewmen light candles for the psychers sacrificed to power their journey. In Hive-world chapels, murals of the throne depict the dead not as lost but as ascending into golden light. And yet, behind the gilded veil, the truth festers. Not every psycher goes quietly. Not every death is smooth. Sometimes the sacrifice fails, sometimes the soul burns too hot or twists as it dies, and the pain bleeds into the system. Those events are covered up, suppressed. If 1,000 psychers die in agony, the Imperium needs only one to be remembered as a saint. The rest vanish into data logs and sealed vaults. The cult doesn't need reality, it needs belief. And the people believe, because they must, because the alternative is too grim. Because if the Emperor is not a god of salvation, then he is a corpse on a throne of lies. And that is a truth too heavy to bear. So the stories continue, and the sacrifices are made, and the Imperium pretends it is holy. They don't talk about it, not really, not in the open, not even in whispers. But somewhere, in the hidden war rooms of the High Lords, in the sealed vaults of the Inquisition, behind the veils of the Navigator's cloisters, they know what would happen if it stopped, if the sacrifices ceased, if the flow of Psyker souls into the Golden Throne were cut off for even a single day. First, the Astronomicon would flicker, not go out, not immediately. The throne is vast, and the Emperor's mind, even as shattered as it is, still clings to persistence. But the light would falter. The psychic flame that pierces the warp would sputter like a candle under storm winds. Navigators across the galaxy would feel it. Ships mid-translation would lurch. Warp routes would dissolve into unknowable eddies. Trade would vanish. Armies would be stranded. Worlds would go dark. And then it would die. There is no second source, no auxiliary. The Emperor is the Astronomicon, and the sacrifices are its blood. Without them, he would not simply weaken, he would fall. Not in body, his body has long since withered to dust and bone, kept animate by tech priests and faith. But in mind, in presence, in will. The last glimmer of consciousness, the sliver of divine perception that still holds humanity together, would blink out, and Terra would feel it first. The Golden Throne would collapse into itself, a psychic sinkhole devouring everything near it. Thousands of astropaths and acolytes who serve near the throne would die instantly, their minds shredded. The custodes and sisters of silence might endure for a time, protected by sheer force of null and iron will, but even they would not last. The Emperor's mind, unmoored, would burst outward, or inward. No one knows, but the warp would know. It watches, always, and it waits. The four gods, the never-born, the countless lesser entities clawing at reality, all feel the flame of the Astronomicon. It is a thorn in their eye, a pain they cannot reach. But if that light vanished, the warp would surge. Terra, no longer protected by the beacon, would become a beacon of a different kind, one of despair, power, and ruin. The Eye of Terror is already a wound in real space. If the throne failed, it would widen. Warp storms would blossom across Segmentum Solar. The veil between realms would fray. Daemons would pour forth, not in secret rituals or isolated breaches, but as a tide. The palace, sacred heart of mankind, would become a war zone of flame and flesh. The Emperor's body might survive, might even become a puppet, or it might finally be consumed. Either fate would be the death of the Imperium. Across the stars, the effects would cascade. Warp travel would become impossible for most. Entire sectors would vanish into silence. Astropaths would scream as their link to Terra shattered. Rogue traders, Navy battle groups, Astartes fleets, all would be lost, isolated in a galaxy turned feral. The Adeptus Mechanicus would fracture, each forge world reverting to insular dogma. The Ecclesiarchy would splinter, desperate to control a faith no longer connected to its god. Some planets would endure. Fortress worlds, isolated bastions with stockpiles and faith. But most would fall. Xenos races would surge in the vacuum, orcs would swarm, Tyranids would feast, Eldar would watch with mourning or glee depending on the soul, and chaos would rise, unchallenged. The dream of unity, already a corpse thing, would finally rot. And yet, there are those who wonder, what if the cycle ended differently? Not with collapse, but with transformation. What if the Emperor was allowed to die, truly die, and in that death become something else? A god not bound to flesh, but born anew in the warp? A being of pure thought, unchained from the throne. It is heresy, dangerous. But some radical factions of the Inquisition believe it may be the only path forward, but no one dares, because the risk is total. So the sacrifices continue, because to stop is to gamble the soul of the species on a hope no one can prove. And because the machine, ancient, merciless, and vast, has no brakes. The Imperium stands, it endures. That's the phrase carved into 1,000,000 banners, painted on countless walls, whispered in desperate prayers across the stars. But it does not stand on triumph. It does not endure on strength alone. It endures on ashes, on the endless, grinding destruction of its own people. And nowhere is that more clear, more raw, more obscene than in the daily ritual of sacrifice to the Emperor. Thousands a day, millions across millennia. A human tide funneled into a god machine that should never have existed. The Golden Throne is not a symbol of unity. It is not even a throne. It is a coffin, a cage, a battery leaking soul light into the void. And yet, the Imperium bows before it, reveres it, builds its cities and faith and future on its existence. Because it must. The Psykers fed into that machine are not heroes. Most are not villains either. They are swept up by a system so vast it no longer sees faces. Only quotas, only numbers, only functions. They come from every world, every class, every corner of humanity's reach. They bring with them hope, terror, anger, sometimes even awe. And they are all unmade, their identities shredded, their essence consumed, their voices lost in the tide of necessary death. And the Imperium is built on that loss. The Adeptus Terra does not record the names of the sacrificed. It does not build monuments. It does not send letters to grieving families. It does not grieve, because it cannot afford to. Grief requires pause. Grief requires a soul, and the Imperium cannot pause. It cannot mourn. It can only consume. There is no future in this path. Not truly. Not if it continues unbroken. A civilization built on death will eventually run out of lives. Even now, the pool of Psykers is thinning. The need grows greater, the light flickers, and all the while, the machine demands more. But the tragedy is deeper than logistics. It is not just the waste of life. It is the normalization of horror. The way priests sing hymns to the burning of children. The way families speak with pride of sons and daughters they will never see again. The way truth has been reshaped so completely that even questioning it feels unnatural. And yet, we must question. We must. Not because the machine will change. It won't. Not because the Emperor will awaken and rewrite the rules. He can't. But because the dead deserve more than to be forgotten. They deserve memory. They deserve anger. They deserve recognition, even if only from us. The Psykers who die each day are not faceless. They are not gone. Not truly. Their echoes remain, in the Astronomicon. In the warp light that guides ships home. In the rare, quiet moments when you can feel something. A presence, a pressure, a sorrow. Just beyond perception. They are the cost of humanity's survival, and they are too often erased. But they are also a mirror held up to every citizen of the Imperium, every servant of the throne, every priest who chants the litanies without thinking. A mirror that asks, how much more can we burn before there is nothing left? Because the fire does not stay confined to the throne. It spreads, it eats, and one day it may turn on those who lit it. But for now, the sacrifice continues, and so we tell their stories. Because if we stop telling them, if we forget the price, then we have already lost. They call it duty. They call it glory. But there's another word they never say. Addiction. Not in the way of narcotics or lust, but in the way of structure, of survival, of civilization devouring its own children because it no longer remembers how to do anything else. The Imperium of man has not merely learned to endure atrocity. It has become dependent on it. The ritual sacrifice of Psykers is not an unfortunate necessity. It is a habit, a rhythm, a reflex, and like all addictions, it numbs the senses over time. It makes horrors seem normal. When the Golden Throne was first activated, it was a desperate measure. The Emperor, broken at the hands of his favorite son, was interred in that monstrous device not as a symbol, but as a last grasping attempt to preserve what remained of humanity's greatest mind. It wasn't supposed to last. Even the brightest minds of the Mechanicum, even Malcador before his end, knew this was a patch, a stopgap solution, a bridge to something better. But better never came. Only war. Only rot. Only ritual. And now, the entire galaxy spins on the axle of a mistake. There are High Lords who know this, who see the shape of the trap they've inherited. Not because they are more moral, morality in the Senatorum Imperialis is a fossil, but because they are pragmatic. They see the numbers, the graphs, the declining frequency of Psyker births in compliant sectors, the increase in warp-related instability, the rising rate of sacrificial failure. Psykers who burn too fast, too wild, and destabilize rather than sustain the throne. But they can't speak. Not openly, because even questioning the system invites annihilation. Not just political, but spiritual. In the Imperium, to doubt is to sin. To analyze is to rebel. And so the addiction continues, unchallenged. What does addiction do to the soul of a species? It makes saints out of corpses. It makes sacraments out of slaughter. It makes unmaking a form of patriotism. There are entire sectors where the cult of sacrifice has become so ingrained that families breed Psykers deliberately, hoping their child will be chosen. They see it as a holy calling. A bloodline blessed by the warp, honored to serve the Emperor in the most direct way possible. And when the black ships come, they do not resist. They offer their children with open hands and proud hearts. The children scream, the parents smile, and the Imperium takes what it needs. These are not outliers, these are examples. The system self-replicates. It creates its own believers. Those who suffer most under it become its fiercest defenders, because to question the structure that grinds you into paste is to admit the pain was for nothing, and no one wants to be meaningless, not even in death. But there are cracks. In the deep void between stars, astropaths dream of fire without light. On Mars, whispers run through the data vaults of the Omnissiah's priesthood. Stories of machines that could replicate psychic signals, of STCs buried beneath red dust that might hold answers the Imperium no longer wants. On Forgotten Worlds, radical inquisitors dig into pre-heresy archives, searching for theories long buried, truths long feared. All are hunting the same thing: an exit, a way to break the cycle. Some speak of the second ascension, the moment when the Emperor finally dies and rises again, not in flesh, but in the warp, reborn as a true god of order, a psychic beacon unchained from mortality. They believe the sacrifice must stop for that to happen, that the throne itself is not sustaining him but imprisoning him, that every soul fed into the machine delays the resurrection. Others reject faith entirely. They believe in machines, in systems, in progress. They want to build a new Astronomicon, artificial, technological, unbound by the need for psyker death. They speak of neural lattice constructs, of soul-replicating signal matrices, of theories so dangerous they must be spoken only in the deepest crypts of the Mechanicus. Most are executed before they finish their work, because no matter how broken the system is, the alternative is unthinkable. That is the heart of the addiction, the terror of withdrawal. What if the throne is stopped and nothing happens? What if he dies and the Astronomicon doesn't flicker but explodes? What if the warp surges and Terra is swallowed? What if he lives but changed? What if the light bends in directions the Imperium can't control? It's not just survival on the line, it's control. The High Lords don't fear death, they fear irrelevance, and the Ecclesiarchy fears a god who might awaken and find their entire structure unworthy. So they cling to the sacrifice, they enshrine it, they sanctify it, they call it the holiest act in the galaxy, because the moment it is seen for what it truly is, the fuel that keeps a dead machine wheezing, the lie begins to unravel. And yet, even now, in the darkest corners, some believe a reckoning is coming. That the supply of psychers will eventually collapse, that the Emperor's mind, already so fragmented, will reach its threshold, that the balance will shift. The warp is not static, it moves, it mutates, it watches, and some believe it waits. When the addiction ends, and it will, there will be consequences no one can predict. Perhaps Terra will fall, perhaps the Emperor will ascend, perhaps something worse than chaos will take shape in the vacuum left behind. But the sacrifice cannot continue forever. No addiction does. Most people never think about the sacrifice. That's the most damning truth. Not that it happens. Not that it continues. But that the average citizen of the Imperium has been taught, trained, not to see it at all. Like a shadow underfoot that everyone walks over but no one acknowledges, the daily immolation of psychers has become not just normalized, but invisible. They know it exists, of course. They chant the hymns, they read the litany of illumination, hear the name of the Astronomicon whispered in sermons. They are told, vaguely, that the Emperor's light must be fed. But the actual mechanics, the thousands screaming each day, the silent corridors beneath the palace where minds are peeled apart, that is not for them. It's too much, too real, too raw. The Ecclesiarchy gives them a dream instead. A dream gilded in gold leaf, woven into banners, stitched into the liturgies of survival. You cannot think of sacrifice as a reality. You must think of it as myth. That's why the rituals matter. The stories, the festivals. On some hive worlds, there are entire feast days devoted to the flame eternal, where citizens reenact the cleansing of the soul, blissfully unaware that the origin of the holiday was a mass burning of psychers who survived the black ships. On shrine worlds, you'll find cathedrals where statues of the chosen Ashen line the walls. Anonymous psychers depicted as serene, holy martyrs. Their faces sculpted to evoke peace, not agony. It's a lie, but a necessary one. There are thought screens in place. Propaganda engines not just designed to instruct, but to anesthetize, to flood the mind with just enough symbolism and ritual that the real horror remains submerged. The Imperium does not silence its people with guns, it silences them with stories. Stories that replace reality. Stories that rewrite memory. A child may see a black ship once and shiver, but they'll be taught that the ship carries the Emperor's embrace. A priest might weep at the loss of a son, only to be told that the boy now walks in the golden realm beyond flesh. It's not denial, it's cultural anesthesia, and it's not just the common citizen. Even many within the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, those responsible for transporting, sorting, and delivering the psychers, are indoctrinated to disconnect. Their training teaches them to see psychers not as people, but as frequencies, classifications, threat levels. A beta-level deviant is not a frightened teenager, it is a statistic. A category gamma aberrant is not a woman begging to see her family, it is a contamination risk. Language becomes the first weapon in forgetting. Some resist this dehumanization, some fail. There are rare stories, suppressed of course, of Telepathica personnel breaking down, deserting, or even trying to help psychers escape. These individuals are removed, memory wiped, or executed. The system tolerates no breach. Compassion is a virus, and in the halls of the Imperium, viruses are excised. But still, the forgetting continues. It's easier to ignore pain when it is distant, when it is processed, industrialized, mechanized. And so the entire ritual of sacrifice has been buried beneath layers of abstraction. The black ships are faceless. The sorting centers are hidden beneath mountains. The Golden Throne is depicted as a place of glory, not a psychic engine soaked in blood. Even on Terra, where the screams echo beneath the stone, life continues on the surface as if nothing is wrong. Markets open. Administrators argue. Children play in dust-choked plazas beneath statues of burning saints, and the agony beneath remains sealed away, humming softly. What happens when an empire forgets its own cruelty? It becomes blind. It begins to believe its myths. It begins to believe that what it does is not horror, but holiness. That death is not loss, but currency. That suffering is not a wound, but a virtue. And once that belief takes root, the engine becomes self-sustaining. It no longer requires active malice, only inertia. That is the true horror of the sacrifice. Not just the deaths, not just the screams, but the silence, the cultural silence that wraps it all in reverence and moves on. The ability of an entire species to look away, not once, not twice, but every day for 10,000 years. And yet, within the cracks, something still flickers. There are worlds where the myths are questioned, quietly, dangerously. Fringe scholars who speak of the buried truth. Subsects of the Ministorum who pray for the souls of the sacrificed, not as saints but as victims. Rogue astropaths who paint what they dream, only to vanish the next day. The Inquisition hunts these deviations. The ecclesiarchy denounces them. But the thoughts remain. And the dreams come back. Because forgetting is not perfect. It never is. Somewhere, in the back of every mind, there is a whisper, a flicker, a moment of wondering, what is really being done in our name? What price are we truly paying? The Imperium depends on no one answering that question. Because the day it is answered, fully, honestly, is the day everything burns. If this story moved you, if these forgotten voices stirred something in your heart, then let them live on. Share their memory, speak their truth, and subscribe to the channel so that together we can keep the fire of remembrance burning. Not to consume, but to illuminate.